Y'all ready for this?
What is going on, everybody? I got a very special episode of Delivering Sports for you today. First, it's my birthday, which is pretty cool. I do enjoy being a birthday boy, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, today I'm going to be doing an official Mock Draft 1.0 for you guys, the official Delivering Sports Mock Draft 1.0. Before I get into it, I would like to thank Lee Bishop for designing the logo for the show. If you want to check him out, you can go on Facebook. Just look up Lee Bishop Designs on Facebook, and you'll find him there. If you want to look at another mock draft I did do one with thevegasTake.com. My boss, JD Sharp, sent me his mock draft, and I analyzed it. And ours obviously differ a little bit because it's not easy. It's almost impossible to agree with someone 100%. But I did analyze each of his picks, so you can go check it out on thevegasTake.com. All right, let's get started. Number 1 overall, Joe Burrow. I don't think there's any debate at this point. The quarterback joins a short list of 15 players who have won both a Heisman and a national championship in the same season. Passed for 5,671 yards and 60 touchdowns. His passer rating of 202 broke a single-season record in college football. And obviously the Bengals are ready to move on from quarterback Andy Dalton, who they can cut and not have his $17.7 million count against the cap. If the Bengals expect to lose a franchise tag on A.J. Green, which I think they will, the rookie sensation would enter the league with respectable weapons. In case there's any doubt, the Bengals have already publicly stated they're not taking phone calls for the pick. Number 2, the Washington Redskins select Chase Young, the defensive end out of Ohio State. Look, Nick Bosa has solidified defensive ends being taken this early for the next 5 years. His influence, even though they didn't win the game, his influence in the Super Bowl was unbelievable. Young is the most physically imposing defensive end of the draft by far. The Redskins have one of the worst defensive rosters in the NFL, and they'll look to take someone here to build their defense around in the future. Number 3, the Detroit Lions select Jeff Okudah, cornerback out of Ohio State. Look, honestly, the Lions just have no choice here. They're 284.44 yards, ranked last in the NFL in passing yards allowed per game, and they were in the bottom 10 in takeaways. The Ohio State product will be plugged in immediately and play alongside Darius Slay if he's there. I know there's contract negotiations going on, but so even more, if they trade him away, they'll have to find a new cornerback. Honestly, the Lions, as much as we give them no credit for anything, they looked like a playoff team prior to Matthew Stafford's season-ending injury early in the season. So, I think they'll definitely take him here. He's the best corner in the draft. Number 4, the New York Giants select Jerry Jeudy. The Giants very well could go for an offensive lineman here. That is certainly not it's not impossible, but it is hard to pass up on a talent like Jerry Jeudy. I mean, they like Golden Tate, yes, but he is not in their long term. He's not the long term answer. To have a receiver for Daniel Jones. Judy's probably the most talented receiver to come out of college since Odell Beckham Jr. So, again, I understand the risk of doing that because your offensive line is so bad, but I think they're investing further in Daniel Jones with this pick here. Number 5, the Miami Dolphins select Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback out of Alabama. There's undoubtedly a lot of risk when it comes to drafting with someone with this much risk, with this much of an injury risk. With that being said, the Dolphins can't pass up on a quarterback with this much talent. If, in only 6 games in 2019, Tua threw for 2,840 yards. And he had 33 touchdowns. Had he stayed healthy, the Redskins and the Lions might have actually a much more difficult choice on their hands here, in my opinion. Number 6, the Los Angeles Chargers select Derek Brown, the defensive tackle out of Auburn. I don't think the Chargers select a QB in this spot. I really don't. I believe they have a big chance of getting Tom Brady, and I do not expect him to sign before the draft ends. I think he's going to wait to see what teams do. The Chargers are going to want him to feel as though there's the least amount of pressure to perform offensively, and they can do that by getting Brown here in this spot. Number 7, the Carolina Panthers select Jedrick Willis, offensive tackle out of Alabama. The Panthers fully expect Cam Newton to be back next season, and I believe they're going to stick with him. And the best way to keep him healthy will be by adding to their offensive line. How much Newton has left in the tank is honestly a mystery, but I mean, that's pretty much just a discussion for another time. Number 8, the Arizona Cardinals select CeeDee Lamb, receiver out of Oklahoma. Look, I do understand that the Cardinals had the worst defense in the league last year, but I think they invest more in weapons like they invest more in weapons for Kyler Murray here. They want to make him happy, and I think it's more important to them than addressing like the bevy of issues they have on the other side of the ball. Number 9, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Isaiah Simmons, safety/linebacker out of Clemson. The Jaguars will cry if he falls to them at this point in the draft. Like I think they've been adding amazing defensive talent, such as last year's Josh Allen. Simmons is primed to be probably the most impressive talent in the combine, just physically, and he can be played in practically any defensive scheme because of his versatility. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns invest in Tristan Wirfs, offensive lineman out of Iowa. The Browns are hoping that Baker Mayfield will recover from his sophomore slump. It's not like they're going to draft the quarterback here, of course. And new head coach Kevin Stefanski will want to give him the best chance of being successful in a Cleveland Browns jersey by keeping him protected. So they invest in the offensive line here. Number 11, the New York Jets select Andrew Thomas, the offensive lineman out of Alabama. The Jets allowed the second most sacks per game last season, and they'll take whatever lineman falls to them at this point. Number 12, first trade of the draft. Tampa Bay trades the Raiders for their number 12 pick. I don't know what that entails. I think it's impossible, and I think if anyone predicts what a trade will be on draft day is stupid because it's impossible. In any case, they get it done. They go up 2 spots over the Colts here, and the Buccaneers know that the Raiders won't be drafting a quarterback here, but they do know that the Colts are pretty much. And I have no idea. Like I said, I don't know what the trade's going to entail, but the Raiders will surely be happy to get the extra draft capital, maybe hopefully get a second-round pick. I'm sure that's what they'll want. And, the Buccaneers are just ready to move on from the 30-30 touchdown interception Jameis Winston. So I have them selecting Justin Herbert. I have them leapfrogging the Colts, who I'm sure won him, and would hope that he falls here, but they won't have a choice. At number 13, so the Colts are kind of left out to dry, but I think they take Jacob Eason, the quarterback. The Colts will be disappointed that Herbert didn't fall to them, obviously, but I do think they take the next best thing here. I think he's going to be the Daniel Jones of the NFL draft, and he was primed to be taken like later in the draft, maybe the second or third round, but I think he has a really strong arm, which I think is going to help him at the combine, and I think it elevates him to this spot right here. So now that the Raiders are up after trading back, the Raiders select Xavier Christian. They take Christian Fulton, the quarterback out of LSU. Fulton's biggest enemy could be the NFL Combine. My boss JD suspects that his 40-yard dash time is going to be close to 4.53. Meaning there is a risk, considering they play in the same division as Tyreek Hill. But Trayvon Mullen and Isaiah Johnson is not going to be enough for the Raiders. And I get it. The Raiders would love to take a receiver here, but honestly, there's no one worth taking at this spot, and I just don't see them doing it. They could go safety here, but again, the cornerback is a much more immediate need because they do have players at the safety position. With that being said, number 15, the Denver Broncos select Henry Ruggs III, receiver out of Alabama. The Broncos, for the meantime, are content with Drew Lock, and he had definitely ended the season strong. Sutton's a great weapon, and I'm a fan of Noah Fant, but their offensive line was pretty average last year, but they'll want to add like a receiver to kind of stretch out that defense and support their run game. Number 16, the Atlanta Falcons select AJ Epenesa. I think this is how I say it. The linebacker / defensive end out of Iowa. It's honestly crazy to think about how good the Falcons were at the end of the last season. If they hadn't started off looking like the worst team in football, they could have been a threat in the playoffs. I mean, they ended the season beating the 49ers. And there's a few safeties I can see him here, but they do have that kid Neal, and I know he gets hurt a lot, and I think he's torn his ACL like 2 or 3 times, but it's technically not a position of need here. And, AJ is a top 10 talent in this draft, so they still do need help on the defensive end, so I think they try to shore it up here in this spot. Number 17, the Dallas Cowboys select C.J. Henderson, cornerback out of Florida. The Cowboys' number one need in this draft is corner position, and he's basically the best available at this point, and they, in my opinion, won't have a choice but to take him here. With the the 18th pick, which is Miami's second first rounder via the Pittsburgh Steelers, is I think they're going to take Mekhi Becton, the offensive tackle out of Louisville. Look, the Dolphins can't allow Tua to get sacked on a consistent basis. They can't start him off his career that way. They'll have to start improving like the league's worst offensive line that allowed 3.6 sacks per game in 2019. And, you know, essentially the Dolphins will just have a lot of work to do to ensure they don't set up another quarterback for failure, which effectively ended Josh Rosen's career completely. With the Raiders' second pick and the 19th overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders, via the Chicago Bears, select Kenneth Murray. The Raiders are so desperate for coverage linebackers, and you know, Murray is honestly probably an early second round talent, but they don't have a second round pick, so I think they won't have a choice, and they'll hope that Kenneth Murray can be the best little middle linebacker they've had in probably a decade. Number 20, the Jaguars have their second first rounder of this year's draft, and they select Laviska Shenault Jr., the receiver out of Colorado. I think the Jags will likely have a new starting quarterback next year, and as dominant as their defense will be, I still think they need help offensively if they're going to A, make the playoffs, and B, do anything when they get there. And I expect them to sign Phillip Rivers. Number 21, Philadelphia Eagles select Xavier McKinney, the safety out of Alabama. The Eagles will cry if McKinney falls to this point in the draft. One of the best safeties, probably the best safety in the draft, of course, will fall right in their laps for a position of major need. Their defense has always been stout for years now, and this will make them even better. Honestly, it'll always come down to their Carson Wentz's health. So, I mean, take that as what you will, but they'll love to have McKinney here. Number 22, the Buffalo Bills select. I'm glad I'm not announcing these draft night. Kalavon Chassian, the edge rusher out of LSU. The Bills would love to take a receiver here, but again, I think it's kind of one of those things where there isn't one available worth taking, and Chassian's a really good talent, and they love defense, obviously, so I think they'll be looking to do that kind of thing here, and they'll look to add to their already really dominant defense. Number 23, the New England Patriots select Cole Kmet, the tight end out of Notre Dame. And it obviously looks like Rob Gronkowski's not coming back to football, obviously. And the Patriots will likely sign Andy Dalton or Phillip Rivers, like some of those names. And with the departure of Tom Brady, like I predict, both of those guys have been most effective with a good tight end, if you really think about it. Eifert was for Dalton, and obviously Phillip Rivers had Gates. So Patriots tight ends only had 37 catches last year, meaning they'll be happy to add like a legitimate passing target. And maybe he isn't a first round type of talent, but he is the best tight end in the draft. Like, it's not debatable. You can't debate it. Number 24, the New Orleans Saints select Patrick Queen, the linebacker out of LSU. The Saints' 51 sacks ranked third in the league last year, but they were 20th ranked in passing defense. So, unfortunately, there really isn't a corner worth taking at this spot, but with the likely return of Drew Brees, and he did announce he's coming back, it just depends on if they sign him. The Saints have to, and I'm assuming they will, the Saints will have to do everything they can to ensure he isn't playing from behind a lot. This pick will help the Saints towards like probably top 10 in points allowed per game versus their 13th rank, 21.31 in 2019. Number 25, the Minnesota Vikings select Javon Kinlaw, the inside defensive lineman from South Carolina. Look, the Vikings are ready to roll back into the playoffs, and they believe they can get there. They believe they can get to the Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. I don't know if I do. I don't. That spoiler. But this helped fill a hole defensively that they need. At number 26, Miami has their third and final first rounder of this draft via the Houston Texans, and they select Jonathan Taylor, the running back out of Wisconsin. Obviously, the Dolphins no longer have Kenyon Drake after trading him away to the Cardinals, and they have to find his replacement to help Tua because he won't be able to do it on his own in his rookie season. And they got offensive line protection earlier in the draft, and now they will have to look to give him probably the best running back in the draft. I know it's kind of debatable, but I personally am a fan of Taylor here. The Dolphins have a lot of other needs, but they can only get one guy at a time, and I think they pick up 3 pretty solid guys here. Number 27, the Seattle Seahawks select Terrell Lewis, defensive end out of Alabama. The Seahawks were so close to making a Super Bowl appearance. Honestly, one call that I really just don't understand at the end of the day, but I expect them to let Clowney go in the hopes of signing an offensive lineman to protect Russell Wilson, and so I think they try to use their money for that, and obviously that means they'll have to replace their pass rusher, and I think they try to do it here with Lewis. Number 28, the Baltimore Ravens select T. Higgins, the receiver out of Clemson. The unstoppable, I say that quote unquote, it didn't look so impressive in the playoffs, let's be honest. Lamar Jackson took a big leap forward with his arm in year 2, but he still needs help with the receiving core. Marquise Brown was an explosive player in year 1, but it's honestly still not enough. Higgins will look to be the difference maker on a team that is trying to elevate themselves past early round exits. Number 29, the Tennessee Titans select Raekwon Davis, defensive tackle, Alabama. The Titans were able to make an impressive run in the playoffs thanks to Derrick Henry. Their defense, who played quite well, ultimately let them down, let's be honest, against the Chiefs. The team likely feels it's a couple of playmakers away from making another deep postseason run, and they could potentially get this with Davis here late in the draft. Number 30, the Green Bay Packers select Justin Jefferson, receiver out of LSU, who was definitely helped for the college. He's definitely helped his draft stock in the college football playoffs. And obviously his status is also elevated because he played with the greatest quarterback in college football history for that season. His 227 yards and 4 touchdowns against Oklahoma will not soon be forgotten. And the Packers lack a real weapon outside of Devontae Adams, and they will want to give Rodgers the necessary tools to be successful. Rodgers has shown the ability still to be a star player, but there are limits to what he can do with the current roster. Jefferson would allow Rodgers to have a consistent weapon to look for deep down the field. Number 31, San Francisco 49ers select Delpit, the safety out of LSU. I'm sure the 49ers would love to find an offensive weapon here, but they can't pass up Delpit in this spot. Like this is him falling about as far as humanly possible, and there really isn't a receiver here at this point that is worthy of taking, so they'll look to add even more talent to their defense here. And last, I have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Josh Jones, the lineman. Look, the Chiefs are about to give Pat Mahomes the biggest contract in NFL history. Like, there's no debating that. And they're going to want to protect their greatest asset they have for years and years to come. Even though they allowed the third fewest sacks per game in 2019, ensuring the interior line will help them sleep a little better at night for the $250 million man. So that's going to do it for the first round. For me, this is only 1.0. Things will change as time goes on, especially after free agency. I'll be doing another one. I just didn't want to do one every day. So this is just my first impressions, my first thoughts of the draft. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter, YouTube, wherever you want. I'll run through that real quick. You can find me on Twitter on @DeliveringSport, on Twitter @DeliveringSports, on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it today, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.